Am I the only one that didn't know about the deep ties between Trump and the so-called deep state? Transparency and accountability aren't exactly words that spring to mind when we think about the Trump administration. Instead, we think of secrecy, controversy, and a whole lot of confusion. It's like trying to find a vegan option at a sausage fest. Theoretically possible, but you're gonna have to dig through a lot of questionable meat to get there. The Trump era was filled with moments that left us scratching our heads, wondering what was really going on behind the scenes. From day one, Trump's presidency was shrouded in a miasma of conflicts of interest. The headlines were relentless, each one more shocking than the last, painting a picture of an administration that seemed to thrive on chaos. Remember those cozy little chats with Putin? No transcripts, folks, just vibes. These meetings raised more questions than answers, leaving the public in the dark about what was really discussed. And let's not forget about all those taxpayer dollars funneled straight into his own businesses. Every trip to a Trump property meant more money in his pocket, raising serious ethical concerns. It was enough to make your average ethics watchdog spontaneously combust. The sheer volume of potential conflicts of interest was staggering, and it seemed like new issues were cropping up every day. But here's the thing. It wasn't just the blatant self-dealing that should have set off alarm bells. It was the undercurrent of secrecy and the whispers of deals made in the shadows that really painted a troubling picture. It was the stuff happening in the shadows, the whispers of shell companies and backroom deals that really stunk of something rotten. These were the things that made you wonder just how deep the rabbit hole went, and as we're about to see, the stench only got stronger as time went on. The more we uncovered, the more it became clear that this was just the tip of the iceberg. Recent developments have highlighted concerns regarding potential conflicts of interest and opaque financial practices within the Trump administration, particularly involving shell companies and influential figures. Leading Democrats have called for an investigation into Elon Musk over potential criminal corruption linked to his involvement in government operations under President Trump. Concerns have arisen following the cancellation of a $2.4 billion Federal Aviation Administration (FAA) contract with Verizon, which was subsequently awarded to Musk's company, Starlink. Lawmakers allege conflicts of interest, given Musk's substantial financial gains from government contracts and his role as a special government employee influencing federal bodies, including the FAA. Paul Dans, the former director of Project 2025, a right-wing initiative created by the Heritage Foundation to dismantle aspects of the federal government, praised President Trump's recent actions as exceeding his expectations. The project aimed to reduce government staffing and budgets, remove protections for marginalized groups, and address issues like diversity and climate change. Since re-election, Trump, with support from Elon Musk, has initiated significant changes, including government staff cuts and the rollback of climate regulations. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, appointed by President Trump, has dissolved the Klepto-Capture Task Force, which targeted illicit Russian assets. This move raises concerns about the future of ongoing investigations into financial misconduct and the potential use of shell companies to obscure asset ownership. President Trump has frequently expressed intentions to dismantle the so-called deep state, referring to entrenched bureaucratic elements within the government. He has outlined plans to demolish the deep state by restructuring the civil service, limiting the power of institutions and experts, and replacing career officials with loyalists. In summary, recent actions by the Trump administration, including the awarding of government contracts to companies linked to influential figures like Elon Musk, the implementation of Project 2025's objectives, and the dissolution of investigative task forces, have heightened concerns about the use of shell companies and lack of transparency in government operations. These developments underscore the importance of vigilance and accountability in monitoring potential abuses of power and financial misconduct. I bet you didn't know how deep Elon Musk's ties with the government run. You know, the guy who shoots cars into space and tweets like a teenager on a sugar rush. His antics on social media are almost as famous as his groundbreaking work in the tech industry. He's a brilliant entrepreneur, no doubt. From revolutionizing electric cars with Tesla to pushing the boundaries of space travel with SpaceX, Musk has made a name for himself as a visionary. But is he also the beneficiary of a little too much government largesse? Under Trump, Musk's companies seem to have a knack for landing lucrative government contracts. These contracts weren't just small deals either, they were multi-million, sometimes multi-billion-dollar agreements that raised eyebrows across the industry. Take the FAA, for example. This federal agency, responsible for regulating all aspects of civil aviation, made a surprising decision. They decided to ditch Verizon and hand over a cool $2.4 billion to Musk's Starlink for, wait for it, internet service. Yes, you heard that right, internet service. Now, I'm no rocket scientist, but that sounds a lot like a case of my friend's company can do it cheaper logic except on a multi-billion-dollar scale. It's almost as if the usual rules of competition didn't apply. And here's the kicker. At the same time Musk was raking in government cash, he was also serving as a special government advisor. This dual role raises serious questions about fairness and transparency. Talk about a conflict of interest. It's hard to ignore the potential for biased decision-making when someone stands to gain so much personally. It's like letting the fox guard the henhouse, except the fox is also on the payroll and tweeting about how much he loves chicken nuggets. The whole situation leaves us wondering, is this the best use of taxpayer money? Am I the only one that didn't know about this audacious plan? Hold on to your hats, folks, because this next one is a doozy. We're diving into a plan so bold that it could reshape the very fabric of our democracy. Let me introduce you to Project 2025, a delightful little scheme cooked up by the Heritage Foundation, a think tank that makes the Koch brothers look like bleeding heart liberals. This isn't just any policy proposal. It's a comprehensive strategy designed to overhaul the government from the inside out. What's Project 2025 all about, you ask? Well, imagine if you took every far-right fever dream-gutting government agencies, dismantling environmental regulations, and replacing career civil servants with partisan hacks, and crammed it into a single policy document. It's like a wish list for those who believe the government should be as small and ineffective as possible. That's Project 2025 in a nutshell, a blueprint for a government that serves a select few at the expense of the many. It's meticulously detailed, leaving no stone unturned in its quest to reshape the nation. And guess who was a big fan of this dystopian blueprint? You guessed it, Donald J. Trump. He saw in Project 2025 a roadmap to consolidate power and push his agenda without the pesky interference of checks and balances. With Musk cheering from the sidelines, Trump set about implementing Project 2025 with the subtlety of a wrecking ball. Staff cuts? Check. Climate change denialism? Check. It was a full-scale assault on the institutions that underpin our democracy. Attacks on the free press? Check, check, check. Journalists found themselves under constant scrutiny, their credibility questioned at every turn. The goal was clear: undermine the media's role as a watchdog and silence dissenting voices. It was like watching democracy get dismantled in real time, one executive order at a time. Each stroke of the pen brought us closer to a reality where democratic norms were eroded and authoritarianism took root. The stakes couldn't be higher. Remember that whole draining the swamp thing Trump campaigned on? Yeah, about that. Turns out the swamp wasn't drained. It was just restocked with a new breed of swamp creature, the kleptocrat. And nothing says kleptocracy quite like dismantling the very task force designed to combat it. Enter Pam Bondi, Trump's hand-picked attorney general who promptly dissolved the klepto capture task force. You know, that pesky little group tasked with seizing the assets of corrupt foreign officials? Yeah, those guys. The message was clear. If you're a Russian oligarch looking to park your ill-gotten gains in a Trump Tower condo, come on down. The water's fine. And don't worry about those pesky investigators. They're too busy investigating Hunter Biden's laptop to bother with actual financial crimes. Now, let's talk about the deep state. No, it's not a new Netflix thriller series, although it certainly has all the makings of one. It's the term Trump and his cronies used to describe this shadowy cabal of bureaucrats and intelligence officials who were supposedly working to undermine his presidency. Of course, there was never any actual evidence to support this claim. But that didn't stop Trump from using it as a cudgel to attack anyone who dared to question his authority. It was a classic case of projection. Accuse your enemies of the very things you're doing yourself. And what better way to distract from your own administration's corruption than to invent a vast, shadowy conspiracy out to get you? It's the oldest trick in the authoritarian playbook. Just ask Putin, or Erdogan, or Orban, or, well, you get the idea. Shell companies are the hidden players in the financial world. They operate in the shadows, concealing dirty money and avoiding detection. And during Trump's tenure, they proliferated. Remember Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer? He was a big fan of using shell companies. He even created one called Essential Consultants LLC to channel hush money to Stormy Daniels, the adult film star Trump allegedly had an affair with. It's a classic story: powerful man, alleged affair, secretive financial maneuvers. But shell companies aren't just for hush money. They're perfect for hiding asset ownership, dodging taxes, and laundering money. And with Trump not enforcing regulations that require shell companies to reveal their true owners, it was a free-for-all for those wanting to bend the rules. Now let's talk about the January 6th insurrection. You know, that little event where a mob of angry Trump supporters stormed the Capitol building in a desperate attempt to overturn the election results. Yeah, that one. Well, it turns out that a lot of the funding for that little shindig was funneled through, you guessed it, shell companies. And who were the generous donors behind these shadowy entities? We don't know, because you see, that's the beauty of dark money. It's completely untraceable. So, while we know that millions of dollars were poured into organizing and promoting the January 6th rally, we have no idea who was ultimately pulling the strings. And as long as we allow dark money to flow freely through our political system, we'll never know the full extent of its influence. Trump's entire business empire is built on real estate. And let's just say that the real estate industry hasn't exactly been known for its ethical purity. From shady condo deals to money laundering schemes, it's an industry ripe for abuse. And Trump, with his penchant for secrecy and his long history of questionable business dealings, was the perfect person to exploit those weaknesses. Remember all those anonymous shell companies buying up Trump Tower condos? Yeah, it doesn't take a financial genius to see the potential for money laundering there. But here's the thing, it wasn't just about Trump enriching himself. It was about normalizing corruption, about sending the message that the rules don't apply to people like him, and that's a dangerous precedent to set, to say the least. Gap 3S. Investigations into former President Donald Trump's financial dealings have revealed the use of shell companies and opaque financial structures, raising concerns about potential undisclosed connections and financial improprieties. Michael Cohen, Trump's former personal attorney, established Essential Consultants LLC in October 2016. This Delaware-based shell company was initially created to facilitate a payment to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. Subsequently, it was used to receive substantial sums from various corporations including Novartis and AT&T, as well as a firm linked to a Russian oligarch. These transactions, amounting to at least $4.4 million between Trump's election and January 2018, have raised questions about potential conflicts of interest and the true purpose behind these payments. The financing of events leading up to the January 6th Capitol riot also involved opaque financial practices. Key figures in organizing the rally had ties to Trump's campaign, with payments routed through shell companies, obscuring the full extent of the campaign's involvement. This lack of transparency has hindered efforts to fully understand the financial and organizational structures behind the events. Trump's real estate dealings have come under scrutiny for potential money laundering. The sale of condos to anonymously owned shell companies both before and during his presidency has raised alarms about illicit financial activities. Such practices are part of a broader issue where kleptocrats and criminals exploit real estate markets to launder money, undermining democratic institutions and national security. The term deep state refers to an alleged secret network within government entities working against elected officials. Investigations, such as the one led by Special Counsel John Durham, found that while the FBI made significant errors in its probe into Trump's Russia ties, there was no evidence of a coordinated deep state conspiracy against him. In summary, while Trump's financial dealings have involved the use of shell companies and have raised concerns about transparency and potential conflicts of interest, there is no substantiated evidence linking these practices to a deep state conspiracy. The lack of transparency associated with shell companies continues to be a significant issue, as it can obscure financial activities and hinder accountability. So there you have it, folks. A brief glimpse into the tangled web of corruption, conflicts of interest, and shady financial dealings that defined the Trump era. It's enough to make you want to give up on democracy altogether and move to a deserted island somewhere. But here's the thing, we can't afford to give up. Because if we do, the bad guys win. We need to fight back against corruption in all its forms. We need to demand transparency and accountability from our elected officials. And we need to close the loopholes that allow dark money to poison our political system. The future of our democracy depends on it. Don't let the bastards grind you down. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and stay angry. Because the fight for a more just and equitable society starts with each and every one of us.